So with no further ado, as they say, I never know really what that means, but let's welcome everybody in the room to the session. Again, apologies for our later delay. We'll just run through this early stuff quickly so that we are able to focus on our topic at hand this morning. So you know your team, we all say hello to you and we say a warm welcome. There we are. You know what our purpose is, to really provide some education and support for clinicians and people receiving services and family members in British Columbia. We are very grateful to funding from the Ministry of Health, who helped us start off this project, and in particular today we are grateful for the support for the Ministry of Advanced Education for some additional funding. So big thanks to them, very much appreciate that help and support. At Douglas College, as Douglas College staff, we wish to acknowledge the curriculum and Pequot First Nations, as well as all Coast Salish peoples on whose traditional and unceded territory we live, learn and do our work this morning. Please do let us know about evaluation after this session. Please let us know how we're doing. I know we didn't have a great start this morning, but do let us know. Do let us know as well if you're interested in presenting. We would very much love to hear from you. So do let us know if you have a desire to share your expertise on this platform. We really are only good because we have great people who take the courage and take the risk to present on this format. So we're very grateful to them. We do want to let you know about two little things coming up. First being October 14th, a focus on cognition and remediation. So please come join us for the full day if you're interested. You will see details right on the screen at the moment. So just please keep that in mind for November. And also, please save the date. We're going to have a 2-day workshop with guest speaker Ron Unger. So again, just keep your eyes peeled for that. We're hoping to have the official welcome out as of the end of the day, we hope. So please keep your eye on that, please. So it is my great pleasure to welcome our dear colleague Jenn Cusick this morning, who has been a RAP advanced level facilitator since February 2007. So we've had somebody with such wonderful expertise with us today. Jenn brought first RAP to Fraser Health in 2002. Isn't that amazing? Such a long time ago. And it has since grown exponentially in Western Canada. Currently, Jenn runs her own business called Luminate Wellness. And one of the goals is to support the growth of RAP in Canada, as well as bring the conversation about mental wellness to the workplace. So welcome to Jenn and this morning. We also may have Amanda, who will pop in and say hello to us today. And Amanda is a RAP facilitator. She was on the original team that brought RAP to British Columbia and has been working with RAP for about 15 years as well. So she oversees the RAP program at Vancouver Coastal Health. And then finally, Sylvia, who's here in the room with us. A warm welcome to her, who's been a RAP facilitator since 2016 and is currently in peer support training and believes strongly in the peer support model. She's a trauma-informed yoga teacher and will be starting at Douglas College training in the fall. So we welcome her on so many different levels as well. So with that in mind, I'm going to pass you over to Jenn. And thank you, Jenn. And we'll just switch that slide deck. There we go.
Okay.
Excellent.
Thank you so much, everyone. And again, we apologize for a bit of the slow start. It was a gong show in here a few minutes ago. But that's, the nature of this work is sometimes things come up and we just go with the flow. Yes. We also have a guest, a guest that just came together this morning. We have Tamara from McGill University, who will, in a few minutes, we will talk with her. And she's going to share about how RAP is now being offered to students at McGill University. We feel that RAP has application with many, many different demographics, and it's so exciting to see McGill really jumping on the train with this. I'm pretty sure that it's the first university in North America to offer it as part of their services. So yay Canada for being innovative.
And yay McGill.
Yeah,
yes.
So it's very exciting. Yeah. So before we do that, I want to just talk about a few things and then we'll talk with Tamara. And then what we're going to do is cover Sylvia is going to review what we did last time. So that was 2 weeks ago. She's going to do a review. And then we're going to launch into the rest of RAP so that you get a chance to get an idea of the whole picture of what rap is. So before we talk to Tamara, I wanted to talk about a few things about rap. And if you have any questions, please type it in the chat and we'll try to address it during this part. I wanted to talk about how rap is a living document, and it is the goal of rap. You know how sometimes within the system, people we support feel that others are telling them what to do. So there can be a sense of feeling disempowered, that people aren't in charge of their own life. And rap is really about putting people in the driver's seat of their life. It's a living document. It's something that they write for themselves, and it's so powerful to have them when we get to create our own plan for our life rather than have someone else tell us what we need to do. It changes everything. So that is really the beauty of rap, is that it really gets people engaged into thinking about their health, building a sense of self-awareness, which is really huge in recovery, is realizing what I need to take care of myself. And it really changes the whole paradigm of service, in that people are really in charge and we're there as supports, walking alongside someone rather than pulling them. So that's really the important piece, and people can update it at any point in time. Rap is meant to be it's not meant to be a class that you take and you shove your binder up on the shelf and never use it. It's meant to be something that people work with and look at it every day and adapt it and change it, take things out, add things in, so that it really becomes a new way of living. It becomes a new paradigm for life. For me, because rap has been so much a part of my life for so long, it's the way I think. I just think that way now. It's just a part of how I process life. So it eventually integrates into every piece of life, not just mental health, but every piece of life, whether it's taking care of my kids, learning how to not be stressed out when things are, going a little intense. I used my rap like this morning. I used my rap when I had my second baby. I used, and we'll talk about crisis plan in a little bit, but I used my crisis plan as a birth plan, and I can talk a little bit about that. So it can be really integrated into every part of life. As far as demographics go, rap is really meant to be used for anyone. So it was born out of the mental health system, and it was grassroots, out of the consumer survivor movement. And we are very grateful for Mary Ellen for getting it going. And I wish I could tell her story because it's such a powerful story. But if you, I just don't have time today, but if you want to do a little search, just go to I think it's the Copeland Center website, and it's newsletter. It's a newsletter from 2012, and it tells the whole story of how rap was created. And it was her and a group of people that got it going, in Vermont. And Vermont's like a tiny little state. It was a tiny little town in a tiny little state. And now this program is across the world. So it's so inspiring to hear her story and to hear how a group of, a few people can really change so many lives. So if you get a chance to read that, that would be fantastic. So rap now is used, like we're going to talk about, it's used at McGill. It's used clearly in mental health centers. I have had the opportunity to lead some workshops with clinicians, because like Angela Louie mentioned last week, or it was 2 weeks ago, now clinicians and people who are providing the service are having their own raps. And how cool is that? Like, really, how cool is it that clients, it just really breaks down barriers, that a client has a rap, a supporter, a clinician also has a rap. So we have this common language now that we can speak about that puts us all on the same level playing field. And it really shifts the culture in an organization in a really big way. Very powerful. So to integrate RAP into centers where service providers are also creating their own RAP, it just makes a really big difference. Now RAP is also being used in some workplaces. I've had the opportunity to offer it to a local police station. It's still early stages, but we did one with some staff there. There's a goal. I have a big goal to bring it into corporate because I feel, along with the Mental Health Commission of Canada's psychological health and safety policies, I think RAP really fits super well with bringing the conversation of mental health to the workplace. And, you know, people always ask, is it a different program when you offer it to different people? Like if I was to offer it to children or teenagers or adults or, you know, people in the workplace, is it different? And the thing is, it's exactly the same no matter how it's used. You just change your approach. So if I was going to be doing RAP with a group of people with a developmental disability, say, I would approach it different. I'd use different language. I'd make the sessions shorter and simpler, maybe use pictures instead of so much writing. I'd adapt to the needs of the group. Whereas if I was going to do it in corporate, I would use examples that are more suitable to corporate. So I might use examples about stress. I might, because we always share. Part of it is when you're facilitating, you're always sharing a bit of your personal life. And that's, again, what creates the level playing field. So I would change my examples as I'm sharing it to be able to relate to whoever, whatever group I'm working with. So yeah, so it can be used for anyone, pretty much. And again, we talked a little bit about the values and ethics last time. And the values and ethics are the foundation of everything we do, and it's really what makes RAP different. And it's grounded on the idea that self-determination is so important, and we need to, as supporters, as facilitators, as people working in the field, we need to take ourselves out of the picture in the sense that we're there to guide, we're not there to direct. So we're in that place to shine a light and educate people on what RAP is, but not to create it for them. So part of the values and ethics piece is supporting us to challenge some of our biases that we may have that have just come up in our work. So biases like, oh, this person may not be ready for RAP. Mm-hmm. We say anyone, if anyone's wanting to take RAP, anyone is welcome at the table at all times. And I need to, as a facilitator, hold people up with the unconditional high regard. So if someone's triggering me in the group, I need to deal with my trigger. I need to deal with that myself. It's not on the other person. So those things are super important. We need to, another thing when we talk about self-determination is the whole idea of giving advice. Like, it's so tempting as supporters in this field. We really want to help. We really want to make things easier and better for people. Mm-hmm. So we want to challenge. We don't use the word help in RAP. We use the word support. So how will I support someone? And I need to really realize that the person's in control. And if you need me to come alongside, I will support you. But it's really, personal responsibility is a huge, huge piece. So taking that personal responsibility is the utmost importance. And it's so powerful to be facilitating and to be in a position where we've always in the past felt like we had to help people. Well, we really step back as facilitators and encourage people to step up. And we always start our workshops with creating a document called a support document. And we say, for this workshop, how will you support yourself? And no matter what group we're doing this with, we do this. So we encourage people to say, these are my needs, and I'm going to support myself by whatever it happens to be. I'm going to take a break if I need to. If I need to go out and have a smoke, I will. Or if I need to go make a phone call, I will. So it really starts right off the bat with encouraging that personal responsibility. And we believe that you are the expert on yourself. So when we tap into what we need, and that's what this whole thing is about, we're discovering what we need, then we can draw on our inner wisdom. So creating that environment sometimes is a little different than what we're used to in traditional mental health services. So it's really important that when we start facilitating, that we go through a facilitator training first, because the whole purpose of the 5-day facilitator training is really pulling all those things apart and looking at our personal biases and how do we put those aside to create that environment of safety where people can really step up. Any questions about that? Did you lose your chat?
No, I'm just talking to Tamara for a second to see if she...
Any questions about that before we go on to interview Tamara?
Not so far.
Not so far? Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, Tamara, are you there? we can unmute you.
So maybe we'll leave that to Dave.
Okay. So maybe Dave can handle that sound.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I'm very excited to have Tamara on, and I sent you a couple questions, and I thought we could do this a little more casual interview style. So I'm very interested to find out how RAP came about at McGill. And you know where you're at now. So we have about five or 6 minutes.
Can you hear me?
For this.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Are you there, Tamara?
Okay, great. Well, first of all, thank you for having me.
Yes, we can.
Hello? Oh, okay, yeah, right.
Yes. Great to have you here.
Yeah.
I'm glad this worked out.
To give you a bit of background about how it came to McGill, we've had the program here for about 2 years now, and we realized that there was a need for all intents and purposes, I'll use the word lower intensity kind of resources for students that they can access. We also had an issue that a lot of students were on a wait list for individual psychotherapy, so that was kind of why we needed more options to provide for students. So we have every student who goes to McGill, they pay a student service fee, and out of that fee there was a surplus, and we applied for a grant to the mental health service unit at McGill. We applied for a fund from the surplus of the student service fee to bring RAP to McGill, basically. And we heard about that through an advisory board. So the mental health service at McGill holds an advisory board with students who are users of our service and other student activists and kind of student groups that provide peer support around campus. And it was through that advisory board that we discovered RAP. We did our research. We found this program, some like evidence-based and peer-led. It's like students with lived experience can deliver it, and that was kind of what we were looking for, was a program that can really be run by students. So that was kind of like the motivation to bring RAP to McGill. And the director of mental health at the time went to Vermont, learned about the RAP program, and for the first year what we did was we had a mental health professional from our unit paired up with a student who has had lived experience with mental health, and we all went through the training together. So I was one of the first students who was on board with this project. I was paired up with a mental health care professional, and we ran RAP groups that way. So the two facilitators were, one a mental health care professional and the other was a student. And we did that for a year, and now, a year later, we're running it entirely by students who had lived experience with mental health and who themselves gone through a RAP group, then went on to apply to become a facilitator. And that's kind of the model that we're working with now. I think that gave you a lot of information very quickly. Is there anything that you would like me to clarify, or do you have any follow-up questions?
That is exciting. That is so exciting. I love hearing stories like that, and it sounds just, it's very inspiring, and I really hope other schools will follow suit. I think my question for you is now that it's been going for 2 years, what are the results? Like, how many people have gone through it? Is it something that has really supported people, shifted culture, that kind of thing?
So
If
we've
I don't know if
done,
you can
in
answer
our
that.
first year, we ran 10 groups over the course of, so we run it over 3 semesters, the fall, the winter, and the summer. And so the first year we ran 10 groups, and the second year we ran 14 groups. And definitely, so I see all the feedback. So at the end of each RAP group, we have the feedback evaluation forms. So I've seen them all. We keep track of them, kind of just for our own, knowledge of how it's going. And it's extremely well received. Students absolutely love RAP. Like it's very popular at McGill. It's beginning to grow a name. If you could tell people, have you heard of RAP? And they'll say yes, which is amazing considering that it's only been around on campus for 2 years. So that's great. We also noticed that there's a huge, we got a huge increase in the support for the program, or even our retention rates were so much higher once it became 2 students who were facilitating the session. So usually we'd noticed that we'd had like about a 25% of the students would drop out after the first session. And then we noticed that in our second year, it actually got much lower, so down to about 15%, which is pretty great. So it's definitely really popular on campus. We had to make some amendments to the way that we run the groups of the sessions, just to kind of fit in with the lifestyle of students more. So for example, we run it in 6 weeks instead of 8 weeks, 2 hours per week. Yeah, it's really, like, students really do enjoy it. We have had some challenges, of course, which is kind of getting students to understand that a group might be just as or even more beneficial than individual psychotherapy. That especially students at McGill, like they demand their one-on-one therapy, and so we're shifting that idea that you need one-on-one psychotherapy right away. And there's definitely been a shift in ideas about that. I've seen that in my time at McGill.
Yeah. Am I okay? Am I okay? I wanted to just comment on that because I think that's such an important point that we often hear people say, but I don't do groups well. Groups stress me out, that type of thing. But the evidence says that rap really needs to be done in a group. Lots of people want to do it one-on-one, but it's way more effective when it's done in a group. And I have done so many, and over time it's really powerful to see the people who come in afraid of groups and then end with friends. They've developed friendships, and some people don't, but they still really benefit from the group. So I see that that's a big challenge. Our culture is really wants that one-on-one support, which is good, but it also, this group model is also very powerful, and you can do a lot more in a shorter amount of time with the group, because we're all like, one of the values is we believe in mutual learning. So there's a mutual sense of learning that is happening all at the same time, and it can be very powerful for people.
As well.
Thank you. I hope that at some point, I know it's still pretty new for you, but if you're collecting all these stats, it would be fabulous to be able to see them at some point and be able to, have a bit more evidence about RAP working within a university. That sounds really exciting.
We're hoping to collect enough stats to prove its value within university settings. And we have been approached by a number of universities across Canada that are interested in developing the program themselves. So we hope to see RAP have a steady name in universities in the future. Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. Yeah.
Thank you so much, and I will keep in touch with you because I'm very excited to hear about a little bit more.
Thanks again, and have a good session.
Thank you.
Just before you go, we have one person asking, are people screened for risk assessment?
No. So at first
Can I
go ahead.
address that? Okay. You go. You say
I'll
something, and then
like
I'll add
how
a
it
piece.
works is we used to have it that students were referred by whoever their treating physician was at McGill. So in a way, there was some screening, but now it's students choose to do RAP. They can sign themselves up, so they can go online and just sign up for a group. So it's kind of self-selected in a way.
As well, because one of the values and ethics of RAP is that RAP is voluntary and everyone belongs at the table. Everyone has a place at the table, no matter if you're a CEO of a company or a homeless guy down the street. So we do not have a referral and assessment process for RAP. It is self-referral, if anything. So we don't screen, we don't assess, we accept anybody who wants to take it. And that's a thing that's a little bit of a twist and can be a little uncomfortable for people who are used to that referral process. But we don't do that. We also are very careful within the mental health setting of keeping confidentiality. So we don't write notes or anything on what happens during a session unless someone writes their own notes. But we keep it it's very client-centered, and it's not therapy, it's education. So we try to keep that really clear when we lead a group. So it's entirely voluntary. So we never have anyone forced to go to RAP. It does happen from time to time, but that's not the way it's supposed to be. And also we don't do any assessments. The only time that there would be a place where someone wouldn't get into a RAP group is if the group is full. So if we have 10 spots, which is a pretty big group. So if we have 8 to 10 spots, they're full, then the next group of people would be on a wait list, but there's no assessments. So thank you.
Yeah, I'm here.
Are you still there, Tamara?
Okay. Thanks again.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us. And we are, this came together so quickly, and thank you for your flexibility and your willingness to share your story and the story of McGill and RAP. And
sounds good.
We will keep in touch. And thank you for being a champion and trendsetters in this movement. It's very exciting.
Have a good day. Bye.
Bye. That was a lot of echo. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on, and Sylvia is going to review what we did last time. So again, like we talked about last session, is we were talking about how RAP works. We're talking about more of the system and demographics and how to do it. But now we want to move into you developing your little mini RAP. And again, this doesn't count as a prereq to doing a facilitator training. It's just basically meant to be an overview to give you an idea of how this works. But if this was something you did want to pursue and you wanted to become a facilitator, you can send me an email about questions on how to do it. And lots of us around here, including myself, are able to train and support organizations to bring RAP to your services. So just give me an email, and we'll have my email at the end, and I can support you with that. But for now, take off your clinician service provider hat and just do this for your own health. And we're getting into some of the meaty parts now, the parts we're going to talk about triggers and early warning signs and crisis and that type of thing. So think about it in a way that relates to you. You may not have had a situation where you've ended up in the hospital or you've had anything super traumatic, but all of us have challenges, all of us have difficulties, all of us have stress. So think about that for your own life. What does a crisis look like for you, and how do you support yourself when you are in a crisis? So over to Sylvia. She'll do a quick review, and then we will start back in.
Hi, everybody. So I'm just going to do a quick review of the RAP. So RAP is based on five key concepts. So hope. Basically, it's rooted on the idea that there's something to hope for. Jenn already spoke about it, but the next key concept is personal responsibility. Just the idea that you're the expert on yourself and you have to be the one who drives it. Education, learning all you can about yourself. Self-advocacy, just being an advocate for yourself and, you know, standing up for what is right for you. Support. It's really important. Part of why RAP is delivered in group format is that it's helpful for us to have family, friends, and care providers who are supporting us on our journey of wellness. Now, this is just a quick overview, so I do invite everybody to find out more information to review the webinar from the last session, which is posted on the website. So another thing that we spoke, after the 5 key recovery concepts, we spoke about wellness tools, and that's when we start to get into the nitty-gritty of RAP. So all of us,
Forgot to put wellness tools.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm just going to add it in here, but yeah, we do talk about wellness tools, and that's basically all of us have things that make us feel better, whether it's going to the beach, taking your dog for a walk, going to a yoga class, listening to your favorite CD. What are the things that make you feel better, or the things that bring you joy and happiness? And just making a list of all of those things is really handy for all of us, but particularly useful as we move deeper into the RAP. So then we move on to our daily maintenance. So in order to really get into using RAP, you have to understand what you're like when you're well. So just to, you know, having a list of attributes, traits that you are like when you're well, what you are like when you're your best self. Part 2 would be your daily action. So what are the things that you need to do every day? So looking at that wellness tools, what are the things that you need to do every day to just stay well? Usually, particularly as you start developing a RAP, you really want this to be a short and simple list. So, you know, really, for me, for example, my 5 things are: leave the house every day, eat good food every day, move my body every day. There's some other ones that I can't remember, but they're really simplistic, and they're really attainable as well. You don't want things that are going to put too much pressure on you, things that are not achievable every day. So part 3 would be the optional, the things that you might do to help you feel well. So some of those, we talked about this last week or the other week, is that there are things that you need to do to keep your wellness, but that would probably you couldn't do every day, and would actually, in many cases, detract from your wellness if you did them every day. For example, if I did my laundry every day, that's going to cause me a lot of stress. But I do need to do them, say, once a week or however often, in order to make sure I have clothes to wear when I leave the house to do my everyday wellness. And now we're going to move into triggers. And again, that's just a quick recap, so I do invite everyone to go and refresh themselves if they have any more questions about any of those items by watching last week's webinar. Thanks.
Thank you. So I'm going to just preview a little bit about what we're going to cover today so you have context. So the next part after daily maintenance is, or the next section is triggers. And we're going to look at identifying our triggers and creating an action plan. And then after that is early warning signs. And we're going to identify them, create an action plan. And then Amanda is going to take us through when things are breaking down. So that is the time, not quite a crisis, but it's a little bit, it's serious. It's a serious time where if we don't take some pretty immediate action, we're going to end up in a crisis situation. So we're going to talk about that and an action plan. Action plans for when things are breaking down are typically a lot simpler. We have less choice because we're overwhelmed. So we need to have some pretty good options that give us a big bang for our buck so that we don't feel overwhelmed and we get something that will get us back to wellness pretty quickly. And then crisis plan. Like I said, you can use crisis plan for anything, and this is the way RAP is written, and we need to offer it and teach it the way that Mary Ellen designed it. Having said that, you can take your RAP and call it whatever you want. You can take sections out, you can add things, but we need to share it with you the way that it's written. So if any of there's 9 parts of the crisis plan, and if any of them don't fit very well for you, you can adapt it. And I'll tell a little story if we have time later about how I had mentioned I used my crisis plan as a birth plan, and I can tell you how that worked for me. And I did have to adapt it to work for a birth because it's a little different. But it worked. It changed everything for me. It changed from my first birth to my second. It was very powerful. So the 9 parts of crisis plan are part 1, what I'm like when I'm well, and we'll explain why it's in there twice, why it's in RAP, daily maintenance part 1 and crisis plan part 1. There is a very specific reason why it's in there twice. Part 2 is indicators. Part 3 is supporters. Part 4 is medications. Part 5 is treatments, and Amanda is going to take us through all of that. And then part 6 is home community respite. If you want to stay home when you're in a crisis, how does that work? Part 7 is treatment facilities. Part 8 is help from others. So when I'm in a crisis, what kind of support do I need? And I plan it out ahead of time. We know that research says when you plan this stuff out ahead of time, it makes dealing with the crisis so much, if easier is the word, so much easier to get through, and people have less lasting effects of the crisis. People are able to get it back on their feet a lot quicker when you've had a crisis plan, which is basically an advance directive, is what it is. And people create it when they are well. You can do the rest of RAP at any point. You can be very unwell and it doesn't matter. When you create a crisis plan, you need to be in a good place. Anyway, so part 9 is inactivating the plan. So how do people know when they can back off? Because it can be pretty intense if people are in your face all the time and you don't need it anymore. So then the last section 6 of RAP is post-crisis plan. And it's a big one, but we kind of tend to break it down into 2 parts. So the first part is issues that need addressing. What do I need to look at in my RAP? Do I need to change anything? Do I need to thank people, apologize to people? What kind of things do I need to do following a crisis? And then the second part is timetable to resuming responsibilities. How do I get back to regular life? It may mean a return to work plan. It may mean, making some adjustments, getting support with children, all those kinds of things. But what do I need to get back to my regular life? And Sylvia is going to take us through that. So that's basically the preview of what's to come. And we're going to start with triggers. Move it. Here we go. So triggers. Okay, I'm going to pause for a second. I've just been talking a lot. Thank you. Any questions before we move into triggers? Can we access the PowerPoint slides? Well, it will be on the webinar. I can't. So one thing about RAP is copyrighted. It's Mary Ellen Copeland wrote it, and it is there's some pretty secure copyright issues around the material. And actually now, not everyone knows this, but Mary Ellen sold her book. She had a book publishing company, and she sold it to Advocates for Human Potential. It's a fairly big corporation in the US. So now they own all the copyright. So we can't just, pass things around without having permission. But we are allowed to use these for a workshop. So they will be on the website to access as far as the resource with the workshop. But I'm not permitted to really email it to people unless they have taken the course. So I'm sorry about that, but it will be available in the webinar format. And I don't know if anyone else has a question. Okay, so let's move into triggers. So triggers are external events or circumstances that may make you feel very uncomfortable. So they're normal reactions to life events, but if we don't respond to them, they may make us feel worse. So most of us know clearly what a trigger is. Sometimes we don't realize we're being triggered until we're already feeling the effects of the trigger. So this piece is super, super important. It's a really important piece of self-awareness to realize what our triggers are and to take note of them. And often, usually they're outside of ourselves. So things that come our way that, throw life off. And it can be really simple things from, traffic. Traffic can be a trigger for people. Another trigger could be getting like traumatic news about something that's happened to someone we love. Getting really difficult news about ourselves, like a diagnosis, can be a trigger. So it varies in intensity. But yeah, that's what a trigger is. And then I'm gonna not move to that yet. So one piece, I'll tell you about one of my triggers. So one of my triggers is when I work at home and I sometimes don't get out of the house early enough. So it's a trigger for me if I've been working at home all day and haven't left the house, and then the kids come home and then I hear, Mommy, anyone relate? Mommy, I want this. Mommy, I want that. Oh, yeah. And all of a sudden I go, this is too much. That's one of my triggers. I don't know if any of you parents can relate. And, the thing that's so important about triggers is that we realize, people like, sure, my kids triggered me, but it's not on them. I need to own my own trigger because it's my responsibility to make sure I get out of the house and to make sure that I take care of myself. And oftentimes a trigger comes along and it sends us off because we haven't been attentive to our own needs. And then it's like the tipping point or the straw that broke the camel's back. Not always. Sometimes we are doing a great job of taking care of ourselves and a trigger comes along and it throws us off. But sometimes there is that awareness that we haven't maybe followed our daily maintenance plan. We haven't done the things that we need to do for our soul that day. So I'm going to put it out to you. Can I get a few examples of what some triggers are for you? Anyone in the room too, while people are typing.
For me, a trigger would be like a change, like my landlord saying, "Oh, I sold the house and you have to move in 2 months," or a job change, like we don't want you in this position, but we want to promote you and put you here,
right?
And congratulations, and it's like you weren't expecting it or something like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so just like unexpected life circumstances can be a trigger.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear changes, I feel like, is a really hard thing to navigate for a lot of us. Definitely, I've always kind of avoided change as much as possible, even good change. Something that's definitely a trigger for me is loud talking or shouting. Like, I always interpret people who are talking loudly as shouting. I grew up in a home where my mom shouted a lot. There was a lot of argumentation. There was a lot of fighting. So anytime I'm around loud talkers, even if they're not shouting, it just sets me off, and I just want to remove myself from the situation, even if it's just people who are just talking about something in a very cordial way. It just automatically my triggers go up. I can feel my throat closing up and stuff. Yeah, that's definitely one for me. Do we have any triggers from our community?
There's multiple attendees typing. So we haven't had anything come through yet. Yeah.
I can sure relate, Jen, to your idea about working from home in my pajamas a lot of times. That if I don't get out of the house in the morning, I'm just not my best self at the end of the day. I'm just not. Yeah. Oh my, somebody everybody has
Okay.
lots to say here.
Should I read that one, or do you want to read
Sure,
it?
go for it.
Okay, so 2 business meetings or celebration in a restaurant is not slimming.
Right. So
Oh.
somebody has a goal, I think, to lose weight.
Oh, yeah. And you end up having 2 business meetings in the same day in a restaurant like Red Robin. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Someone else says not taking breaks from the computer or taking breaks at work, then that ends up
Physical pain.
physical pain, and becomes a trigger for a migraine.
Oh, yes.
And I feel wimpy for needing to take breaks and seems to be higher maintenance than my colleagues. I need to take personal responsibility to meet my physical needs. That's so great. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And I think one of the beauties about RAP is that we really can change the culture around taking care of ourselves. And I'm going to support myself by going and taking a break. And then that can create the culture within that work environment that it is a good thing to take a break. I know I used to sometimes struggle with not taking breaks, and I don't think it's good for my work. I don't think it's good for anyone. We do so much better when we do take breaks.
Right.
So thank you for sharing that.
And then Ivy adds uncertainty a little bit, like in the previous comment.
And then needing to get behind the wheel of a vehicle, and people saying I need to get a class 4 to find a good job. Thank you.
Wow.
Yeah. When running late for an appointment, I became very irritable and anxious because I'm feeling missed out already. I'm feeling missing out already. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. We can relate. And being ignored is another one. So now we've identified some triggers. And again, that identification piece is so huge, because sometimes when we live on autopilot and just kind of go through life, we definitely, if we're in touch with our body, we can tell that we're having a trigger, but sometimes we don't realize what the trigger is unless we stop and reflect. So RAP really gives the tools to us to take that note, to stop and reflect and go, I'm feeling anxious right now. What was the trigger? What was the thing that brought me to this place? And then once I identify it, it gives me so much power in learning to not feel like it has to beat me up. I can have control over my trigger, which moves us to Triggers Action Plan. So if you had a book in front of you, which you don't, but you can certainly be writing notes. So you write your list of triggers, and then the next piece is creating a plan that will keep you from feeling worse if a triggering event occurs. And there's a couple ways of doing it. Sometimes people take a specific trigger and create a specific action plan for that trigger. Sometimes triggers come along that we don't know were there. All of a sudden, I just discovered a new trigger. I went for a bike ride the other day and I had my phone in my pocket. Chances of this happening, I don't know, but the phone happened to fall out of my pocket right when I was crossing the road, and then not even a minute later, a car runs over my phone and the whole front is cracked. That's a bit of a trigger, to be honest. I don't have an extra $100 to throw around on fixing my phone screen, so it caused me to be a little bit triggered. But the action plan, so that I didn't know that would happen. So that's a trigger that kind of comes along that's unexpected. So my action plan for that was reframing my thinking and going, wow, well, at least it didn't wreck the whole phone, and I wouldn't have, because I would have had to pay $700 for a new phone. So that was my action plan, is reframing it and knowing that it could have been a lot worse. And then I also was going to just use it with the totally cracked screen. And then I was like, you know what, this is going to continue to trigger me every day. I'll just be mad that this happens. So the action plan was just get it changed right away, pay the money, and then forget that it even happened. So that was my action plan. So Other action plans are things like deep breathing, yoga, taking a break, the whole idea of breathing in for 4 seconds, holding it for 4 seconds, and breathing out for 4 seconds. Why don't we do that right now? So breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds. It's going to make it hot in here. We're in this tiny room. That can be a real general action plan that's just on there anytime you feel triggered. And then you can have specific ones for specific triggers. The important piece when we talk about action plans for triggers is that we remember that personal responsibility piece. Sometimes when we are new to RAP, it's easy to use this language and put blame on other people. To go, I'm triggered because we couldn't get the webinar going right at the right time. And there can sometimes be a blame there. Or I'm triggered because so-and-so said something to me. And maybe that person had no intention of triggering us, but it's triggering us. And then by saying that in a way that puts blame on someone else, it actually can create a divide. So the important piece when we're talking about triggers is to own the personal responsibility within our triggers that someone else may have inadvertently or purposefully done something that caused us to be triggered. But again, I'm here right now. I get to choose a different response. So personal responsibility. I can choose a different response that I may have always had for this kind of trigger and respond to it differently. So how am I going to respond differently in a way that encourages personal responsibility, that I can step up and take care of myself without making someone else feel bad as I'm doing it? So that's a really important piece when we talk about triggers. So can I get maybe 2 action plans that you would have for a trigger, either something you shared already or something else?
And feel free for people online, if you wish to contribute as well. We'd love to hear from you.
Sometimes it's simple and I just take a PRN anti-anxiety pill. Works pretty good.
It works good. Yeah. I also use essential oils. So for me, sometimes I use an oil to support myself in the moment. So I'll take, for me, frankincense means relaxing. So I'll just I have it with me all the time. So if I'm in a moment and I can't reach like a medication or something, I'll just breathe it in, and that's supportive for me.
Speaking to when loud noises and stuff, loud voices, a lot of times I remove myself from the situation. Right. And sometimes, for example, I have a family that loves to, their status, their go-to is using loud animated voices. So I can't never be around them, but sometimes when it gets too much, whether I'm at my sister's house or they're at my place or whatever, I'll just take a 5-minute breather, go outside, go for a walk. I also use essential oils, or maybe I'll do a deep breathing exercise, and I just kind of allow myself to reset for a couple minutes, and then go back to the situation and hopefully be in a bit more of a neutral space.
Thank you. And someone says, it went fast. Essential oils, sage works for me. Excellent, thank you. I carry earplugs when I get too much information coming my way. Thank you. Setting a timer to take computer breaks. That's good. Taking coffee breaks and using my full lunch break. Doing yin yoga at lunch, and in the evening when I'm
sore, I think.
When I'm sore. Right. Thank you. Do you want to read the next one?
Read a book. Cuddle with the cats. Brilliant idea. Take a break somewhere quiet. Nice.
Thank you.
Good strategies.
Yeah. We've got 2 more coming in, and then we'll move on. We may not get through all of Crisis Plan, but that's okay.
I can go fast.
Well, we can go fast. Yeah.
There we go. Watching a comedy show works surprisingly well. Nothing like a good chuckle.
Yeah.
Yes. When going out to eat, prepare some suggested places. Thank you. Especially for those of us who have dietary issues, that can be a good action plan for that. Having a novel on my desk is a constant visual reminder that peace is available.
I like that.
Thank you. This is great. I wish we could do this every week. Okay, so we'll move on to part 3 of RAP, and that is early warning signs. So early warning signs are internal and may be unrelated reactions to stressful situations. So there's subtle signs of change that indicate you may need to take some further action. So this one to me is about really honing into the power of our own body. So our bodies hold a lot of our stress and trauma and difficulty, and sometimes like our mind-body connection aren't really very clear. They don't have a really strong connection. So part of this piece to me is building that awareness of tuning into my body and what's it telling me. What's my body telling me about my stress level right now? What's my body telling me about, you know, what's going on outside of my life? So for example, when I get a lot of headaches, I tend to get headaches and tension in my back. That is an early warning sign that I may have too many things going on, and I need to step back and take better care of my health. So it could be something like that. It could be something outside of your body, like maybe spending too much time on the internet, or and the thing that's really important to talk about, and we haven't mentioned this yet, is what works for me is different than what works for Sylvia and Amanda and Regina. So all of our wraps are going to be totally different. So for someone, it might be a wellness tool to sit and watch an entire season of House of Cards in a weekend. That may be a wellness tool. That may be something that you need to do to decompress and get back on your feet. For someone else, that may be an early warning sign that you're not doing well. So it's important to, when we're doing this and brainstorming, to really look at what you need and what your early warning signs or triggers are, because they're going to be different than other people.
Absolutely.
So for me, sometimes watching, I do watch like a few episodes of a show in a row because I need that. I need to tune out of thinking about heavy things. But if it inhibits me from, if I say no to going out with a friend that I really know will edify me, then that could be an early warning sign. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's about really becoming aware of what happens for us. I have one quick little story that I can tell. I know we're running out of time, but I love to tell stories. So one of my, I used to have this thing that when I got really stressed out, I would, and I don't buy a lot of lottery tickets, but I would buy a couple scratch and win tickets. And I told my friend, who is also a RAP facilitator, that this was an early warning sign. And I was like, yeah, this is an early warning sign that I'm not doing well because I have bought 2 scratch and win tickets at the corner store. And then he goes, well, maybe it's not. Maybe it's a wellness tool, or maybe it's like an action plan. Maybe it's not an early warning sign. And I was like, oh, that's very interesting, that maybe it's not always what we think it is. So what I started doing after that is, so I have a history. Part of my history with growing up is I lived in a lot of poverty. And then now I have my own business, which, as anyone who knows, business can be hard. You don't know when you're going to get paid sometimes. So it is finances can be a trigger for me. So I've created this action plan, and it fits with early warning. It fits with actually any section, where I buy 1 scratch and win ticket and I keep it in my purse, but I never scratch it. So what it symbolizes to me, it's not about winning the lottery, because I honestly know that I'm not going to win the lottery. Don't worry about me. I know I'm not going to win. But it symbolizes hope. It symbolizes hope that things might be difficult right now, but it's not always going to be difficult. So I don't need to worry that I don't have money right now because I've got the winning lottery ticket in my purse. So this is kind of how it's helped me to deal with the stress of finances. So our action plan can be anything. It's unique to you. Let's see. Has anyone... we shared? Oh, you were gonna. I'm sorry.
What?
I just got talking about the action plan.
Oh, early warning signs action plan?
Yeah.
So what's an example for me? Or
Oh, did I read these yet?
Yeah.
Did I read them?
so.
There's a few more. If I'm anxious, I'm not sure what that is. Oh, that's Dave.
Sorry, I didn't mean for that to be
Okay.
out loud.
Okay.
Schrodinger's cat it's a reference to Schrodinger's cat, which is in the box, and you don't know if it's alive or dead until you open the box. And so it could be both at the same time.
It could be both at the
theoretically.
same. Oh, I see.
It's your
Okay.
lottery ticket. Anyway,
Okay.
sorry.
Thank you.
Cryptic message.
Cryptic message. Okay. Let's move on to action plan.
early warning signs action plan?
Yes. So.
Okay. Oops, sorry. Not doing a good job here. I apologize. I'm going to get fired, aren't I?
No, you're
There
not.
we go.
So, when you start to have early warning signs, you want to start to develop an action plan of what you can do to get yourself back on track to being well. So, what you're going to do, for me, I find I usually go back to my wellness tools and implement a couple of those. And what I've noticed is, you have your things that you need to do every day. When you're starting to have early warning signs, you're most likely going to the things you might need to do. So, and doing them more often, more religiously, doing a plan. For example, last year I I wasn't doing very well, and I started to have some early warning signs. For me, that was I'd come home from work, I'd go straight to the couch, just watch a lot of TV. I wasn't doing exercise. I wasn't eating well as much. So for me, I needed to take a break from work. So I ended up taking a break from work, and then I needed to bring in some of the other things that I don't do as often, but that I needed to do in order to get myself well. For me, that was acupuncture. I do a lot of sound therapy, which I found really helpful. I use essential oils. And again, that's going to look different from everyone. But it's just really understanding that, getting in contact with how your body is feeling and realizing, you're not doing well, and what are the things that you need to do, the extra things that you need to do in addition to your daily maintenance. Yeah.
Can I ask a little bit about the sound? What this you mentioned?
Oh, sound therapy. Yeah, I do a lot of things, but okay. So I really love, I listen to binaural frequencies on YouTube. There's different frequencies that help you release anger. There's that help you get in touch with your chakras. Like 432 is the love frequency. I listen to frequencies every night to go to sleep. They help you, they help you kind of blank out white noise, but they also, I think everyone here probably has an experience with music, and it helps you get in touch with your body, but it's thought, and I'm probably not the best person to explain it because I'm not a musician or anything, but my understanding is different frequencies can actually help move through the body. I do a lot of chanting as well, which is really good because sound, when you chant, sound is thought to move through different chakras or different energy centers in the body and help release things that are maybe stuck. Another thing for people another thing that I've done is, going to gong baths, and gong baths with the big gongs. That sound is really, really therapeutic. You can watch that on YouTube. It's not quite the same as going to it live. And for anyone in the Vancouver area, there's a woman who does it free or by donation, 6:30 at Bridget and Rich in Vancouver.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Those are some of the things I do.
I just want to highlight that this is why a group is so cool, is that we talk about the mutual learning that happens in the room, and there's so much beauty that we get to explore when people share their wellness tools, and then you go, oh, okay, I want to try that, or maybe that's not for me, but I appreciate knowing that that's out there. So it's really exciting to see that happen in rap groups, and it always happens, pretty much always. So thank you. And now we're going to move to, one thing that came up here for an early warning sign is avoiding social gatherings.
Absolutely.
And binge watching TV.
Yeah.
So,
Been there.
thank you, Taylor, for being on. Thank you. So Amanda is going to cover when things are breaking down or getting worse.
Yeah, and Dave's just gonna move the microphone over, I think. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so when things are breaking down or getting worse, we are on the wrong side.
We're on the wrong side.
Yeah. So
There we go. Sorry.
when things are breaking down or getting worse, the situation is getting serious or even dangerous, but you're still able to take some actions on your own behalf. So it's important to take the time to do immediate assertive actions to prevent a crisis. So sometimes you can prevent the crisis if you catch it early enough and you do, an action plan to make yourself feel better, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it could be that you're feeling suicidal, so you call a crisis line and talk to someone. Or, if you have a problem with alcohol or addiction and you're using or drinking a lot, it could be that you talk to a friend or go to an AA meeting or something like that. So it's when things are kind of dangerous and your health is at risk. I've been there several times.
Yeah.
So.
And it can be different for different parts of your life too. So it could be like a physical sign, or it could be mental health, or it could be a sign that stress is getting overwhelming. For me, because I have diabetes, often it's tied to my blood sugar. Like if I've had too many days where my blood sugar is high, I know that I need some more intentional intervention. I need to really work at changing that. So it could be different for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone want to share?
And then, I have bipolar, so I hallucinate sometimes. So one of my triggers is not getting enough sleep. Mm-hmm. And then when I don't sleep, I start to hear voices. And then I'm like, okay, things are breaking down stage. So I need to up my medication and talk to my psychiatrist and stuff like that, because I don't want to go to the hospital, right? So
preventative.
Yeah, preventative stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes we hope that doing all the other things keep us from getting there, but not always. Sometimes we just wake up one day and we're in that state. Mm-hmm. So it's really important to know what that is, and then,
So you make an action plan for when things are breaking down or getting worse, and the plan has to be very clear and with fewer choices. So put down the must-do things, not the might-do down the road in 3 months things. So you have a concrete goal when you're at that point in your life, and they could be related to triggers, or it could be if I'm hearing voices, this is what I am going to do. Call my doctor, call my mental health worker, go to the hospital maybe.
Thank you. One thing I wanted to highlight that I don't know if we said yet is when you're creating your wellness toolbox, we encourage you to have it really robust, really big, anything you can think of. And then when you're doing your action plans, when you're doing your daily maintenance action plans for triggers, early warning signs, and when things are breaking down, you can pull out of your wellness toolbox. So it's really great to start with a big one. Yeah. And then it gives you lots of ideas to pull from. Okay, so we're going to move into crisis planning, and I'm just going to introduce it, and then Amanda's going to take off with it. So I wanted to, we're running out of time. So I don't have time to tell my story, but anyway, I'll tell maybe another time. I'll get a chance. So crisis plan, this is really very much written for mental health. You'll notice as we go through it. But for you, that may not be what a crisis is for you. It might look different. It might be that you have a health issue. It may be that it's more of a family issue that you're dealing with. Like often families deal with a crisis when it's a family member is struggling. So you can create a crisis plan for your family. You can create one for anything. Like I said, I used it for a birth plan, and my first birth was really hard. Postpartum was really hard. Nothing went the way I wanted it to, and it had lasting repercussions on my psyche and my mental health. So when I had my second, I did everything differently, and I created advanced directives on what interventions I wanted, how many visitors I wanted, all sorts of stuff, and it changed everything for me. The birth still didn't go the way I wanted it to, but because I had that plan in place, it really changed the outcome of how I felt, and I got back on my feet right away pretty quickly. So it was huge for me. So I think this is a really important piece of RAP, is having this crisis plan. So I'm gonna forward till the first piece.
Okay, so you take the describe what you're like when you're feeling well, and you put it in your crisis plan, because you might be a really talkative person, and you go to the hospital and they're like, oh, you're talking a mile a minute, you must be manic. And it's like, no, that's just the way I am. Mm-hmm. So it gives a kind of profile of your personality to people, so that they know, like, okay, this is manic behavior, or this is depressive behavior, or this person is just really isolated and introverted, as opposed to extroverted. So you just copy the first part of your RAP into that section, and then you have signs that supporters need to take over. So these can be signs, symptoms, behaviors that you're no longer able to take care of yourself. So for me, like being psychotic, seeing visions, hearing voices, that's all signs that I'm not in a good place to be responsible for myself. Or it could be depression, like I'm suicidal and don't want to live and stuff like that.
Can I just interrupt you for a second? So I'm realizing we have 5 minutes to go. I wanted to put it out there and see if you all want us to just speed through it in the next 5 minutes, or if you'd like us to do another. We can add another wrap and get into more questions and dialogue around how to implement this. What are your thoughts?
So if you could just let us know, if you could say yes to the dress, or no if you're willing
Please
to
add another.
attend another session. So the question is, one more wrap, yes or no, please. We hear from 2 people already that's another wrap, yes, please.
Okay, so let's just stop here then.
Sure.
That sounds great. And then we can next time pick it up with crisis plan, because I really believe that crisis plan is an important piece. Yeah. And if we skim over it too quickly,
you won't grasp the concepts.
And maybe we could just do a summary of all the learning kind of thing, right? And some more serious time for questions.
We could do a review of everything.
Yeah. So think of some questions that you might want to ask us for the next time.
Yeah.
So date to be announced. We'll just need to do a little bit of planning with everybody around their availability, but please stay tuned, and we will let you know as soon as possible. Yeah. That's great. And
thanks everybody. Well, we're not going to end quite yet. Yes. So we've still got 5 minutes. So how about does anyone have any questions or comments about anything we've done so far today? I also wanted to highlight a couple things that you may have noticed that we were doing as facilitators, and I wanted to point that out because it is part of the values and ethics of what we do. So you'll notice that we all shared our own stories, and we self-disclosed. That is something that is required of all RAP facilitators, no matter if you're a peer or a clinician or anyone like that. And I know that can be a scary thing when you're taught not to self-disclose. So part of the training that we offer is really working, dealing with that tension of sharing your own experiences. because it is really essential, because we trust people when we get to see who they are and we get to understand their struggles, and it also creates a level playing field. So you'll probably notice that we all shared, and that's a really important piece. The other piece that we talk about a lot in our facilitator training is, as facilitators, we don't want to value or judge what people say are their wellness tools. So someone might say a wellness tool that you think is wrong, that you think isn't effective, and there can be, you know, this natural reaction that bubbles up within us that says, no, that's not a good wellness tool.
I like to relax by drinking a couple shots of whiskey.
Yes. So, and yeah, this is something we talk about quite in depth in our facilitator training, because we are here to support someone to discover their inner expert, and telling people what to do is not an effective way. So rather, we accept any feedback. It's valued the same, no matter if it sounds like it's not a helpful activity or whatever. And then we just support people. I really believe that when we're in tune and we're becoming more self-aware, we have the ability to go, you know what, this isn't as effective for me anymore. You know, I have diabetes. If one of my wellness tools is having 2 cupcakes a day, I will notice that it's not working for me. It's not up to someone else to tell me not to do it. I need to realize that it's not a wellness tool for myself. So it's about that whole sharpening the saw, going back and taking inventory and going, this isn't working for me, and I'm changing it because it doesn't work for me, and I'm realizing it, not because someone else told me that it doesn't work. So I think that's a really important piece that I wanted to highlight before we leave.
Before we leave, Jen, we've got some great feedback for next session. Extra information on how to implement RAP, how to keep high fidelity yet adapt the curriculum to your clientele. I'm not sure if this will meet the needs of this person's clients if I can't adapt this somewhat, and that would be a huge investment of time as well. And then you'll need to think about, how do we do this with child welfare? Need to think about, so that's an interesting. Clients who really use strategies that actually place children in risk. That's interesting. Of maltreatment. Also, next time, can you speak to some of the evidence behind the RAP, which we did, I think, in the first session a little bit. And then Ivy adds, your personal stories reinforces the authenticity of RAP. So you've given us lots to think about in terms of planning for next session. Yeah, thank you.
That's great. And unfortunately, we're out of time, so I can't really address any of them yet. But I'll just say, to adapting the curriculum for the clientele, we are not allowed to adapt it, so it is copyrighted. Any adaptation needs to go through Advocates for Human Potential, and they will say, like, if I sat down with you, I could support you to figure out how to keep it as is and make it work for whoever your clientele is. Like, we did this once with people with FASD, and as you know, when you have fetal alcohol syndrome, it's like a brain injury type thing. So when you're supporting someone who has difficulty with that kind of thing, we don't change it, but we just provide more support so that people are able to retain it and have what they need to create their RAP. But we don't have permission to say, take out a key concept or add in a section of RAP or take out a section of RAP. That's not something we're permitted to do if we're facilitating. But there are heaps and heaps of ways of adapting the existing material to meet the needs of whatever group we're working with. I've done it with, some people who are blind or, different things like that. So there's lots of ways that we can do this. So